There we go. Hello. Good morning. I don't know what my hair was doing, but it was doing something funky just now, and I did not like it. But anyway, how's everyone doing? It is a beautiful day. So yesterday's live was kind of intense, and I wanted to revisit the kind of live streams I was starting to really go towards, which is doing these deep dives into specific topics. And I appreciate every single one of you. You know, right now, I want to just try and avoid feeding into the craziness that Trump always does on the daily. Like, literally, I opened up the news this morning and he is going on about ocean drugs. Like, what the fuck? And he's like, the ocean drugs. I'm like, I could dive into that, but like, Trump is a crazy old weird neck pussy man, so I don't want to like even give him any. I'm done. I don't know. I'm kind of in this mindset where I'm like, am I done just covering Trump's insanity at this point? Like, I don't know if it's really hitting in the way that I want to. I'd rather approach it a little bit differently. So I think I'm going to be doing these deep dives into specific topics to kind of just give the information out there about how things work. And one big deep dive that I've been doing, and I've done this quite often, I've done this several times on the live stream, and I think it gets better and better each time I do it. And this is something to really share with your friends. This is something to share in your communities, that undocumented immigrants, because of their status, do not qualify for programs for aid through the government, whether that's Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid or unemployment. They don't get those kinds of benefits. Yet, because they are people residing within our borders, they actually pay into those programs in taxes, whether that's, you know, different types of taxes like state tax or estate tax or sales tax or property tax, all of this money that they pay into certain programs, but because of their status cannot access. And I think that's important because there's this far right-wing talking point that is always talking about how like undocumented immigrants are mooching off the government. Actually, when you really look at the numbers, it's quite the opposite, because undocumented immigrants pay so much into the economy, but then they receive so little out of it. So, C-Bar, hello and good morning. C-Bar is amazing, okay? I see him all the time. Always such an amazing vibe and energy in here. So, it means a lot that, you know, people like C-Bar are here and, you know, rely on the live stream and all that stuff. As someone who is in this space, I actually really take like that kind of oath seriously. People like C-Bar depend on me for some information about how this whole crap works, how everything is going right now. And I take that really personally, actually, because, you know, unlike some news outlets, you know, they have to answer their shareholders. I have to answer to me, it's like, I'm just going to share the information, whether you like it, don't like it, or like that's my primary motive, is to give you the accurate information. I will share my opinion, which you can disagree with. Please go ahead if you want to. But I take that oath very seriously. And I think that content creators should. If they don't, they should. So I'm going to be doing this deep dive again today about how much undocumented immigrants actually pay in taxes into the system. Now, regardless of your political affiliation, whether you are Democrat, Progressive, Republican, MAGA, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to be sharing with you the way that our government is currently set up in the regards to money, how taxes are allocated, and how it affects people who are undocumented. That's what we're going to do, okay? This information is just information. Your interpretation of it can be up for debate. Your approach to it can be up for debate. But the raw information itself is not. Cool? Nothing, because they are not in the system. No, that is incorrect, Heavy Blunt 420. I'll share with you here. So, I appreciate every single one of you. Let's dive into it here, okay? So undocumented immigrants actually pay a lot into the system, but because they are undocumented, they cannot qualify for programs for aid or assistance through the government. So undocumented immigrants pay a lot of taxes into the system for sales tax, property tax, all of these state and local taxes, but they don't actually receive the benefits of it. I'll go into the specifics, but because of their status, they can't access or apply for those programs. Now, there are some limited exceptions, and we'll talk about that here, but for the most part, undocumented immigrants, they pay substantial taxes across the board. You ask Grok this is what it will tell you. You know, they pay substantial taxes across federal, state, local levels, despite limited access to many public benefits funded by those contributions. They are subject to the same tax laws in the U.S. that citizens for income earned here, including automatic withholding from wages and consumption-based taxes. So let me give you a little bit more of a deep dive. This is who Grok actually cites as their main source. The ITEP, which stands for the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. They are a nonpartisan, nonprofit foundation that does a lot of really awesome work, okay? They are nonpartisan. They don't have any sort of leaning. They are not here to push any sort of agenda. They are also a nonprofit, meaning they don't have all these like big shareholders to answer to. So nonpartisan nonprofits have some of the most reliable information. So some of their key findings were undocumented immigrants paid more than 96.7 billion, with a B, billion in federal, state, and local taxes in 2022. Now, I was actually looking for more like 2024 information, but they haven't been able, because it's a huge analysis, they haven't actually completed all of that yet. So I only have 2022 to really play with here. Once that comes out, then I will give you more of an update on that. Make sure to like the stream. Also, if you're enjoying the live, if you like this content, please make sure to like the stream and share with a friend. Be like, there's this cute little guy that goes live and talks about these kinds of things and doesn't feed into the negativity. So I appreciate every single one of you here. So you can see undocumented immigrants paid $96.7 billion in federal, state, and local taxes in 2022. Most of that amount, the $59.4 billion, was paid to the federal government, while the remaining $37.3 billion was paid to state and local governments. Now, what's interesting is undocumented immigrants paid federal, state, and local taxes of $8,889 per person in 2022. So, in other words, for every 1 million undocumented people, actually public services receive $8.9 billion in additional tax revenue. But the thing is, because of their status as being undocumented, they can't apply. They can't access those programs. They don't have a real social security number to access those kinds of programs. So with all that being said, they don't have the citizenship. They don't have the proper IDs in order to access it. So they're paying into the system while not being able to access it. Now let's break down what specific taxes we're talking about here. So, of course, we pay a lot of taxes. It's not just in the spring that you file your taxes and you finally pay them. There's a lot more that goes into it. You have your state and local taxes. You have your federal social insurance taxes. You have your federal income tax. You have your miscellaneous federal taxes. You have your sales tax, your property tax, your estate tax. You have a lot of stuff that you pay into. You are taxed everywhere you go. That's how governments are set up. There is a tax, and then it's a pot of money. The way that governments theoretically work is it's a pot of money that we all pay into. And we, the people, through our Constitution, vested in us by our founders, decided, all right, Congress gets to control how much people pay in taxes, and the government also gets to control how much people can access it. Think of it as a pot of money in a neighborhood, okay? The neighborhood votes on how that money is to be taxed, how people are going to pay for it, and then also they vote on how people can access that money. That's theoretically how governments work. It's particularly the job of Congress to do that. Now, there is some limited discretion that the executive branch, Donald Trump, the president, has to be able to dive into that pot of money, or they are allocated to do certain actions and jobs. It is the job of the executive to often carry out that spending. So they're the ones that kind of like carry out the job that Congress does. That's what it is in theory. Under Trump, You can say that it works a little bit differently, but that's what it is in theory. So undocumented immigrants, they actually pay a lot in different taxes. So you have federal social insurance taxes, federal income tax, miscellaneous federal taxes, state and local taxes. So they pay a lot. So more than a third of tax dollars paid by undocumented immigrants go towards payroll taxes, dedicated to funding programs that these workers are barred from accessing. So you're like, okay, wait, hold on. What's a payroll tax? Payroll taxes are taxes that are withheld from an employee's wages by their employer or paid directly by their employers. So, you know, when you do tax withholding, when you go to work and you do like the tax withholding, you are taxed on the amount of money you make. Or if you happen to have like some sort of insurance or anything like that, that's also deducted from your paycheck. So basically, all of that being said, these people go to work and they're being taxed, money is being taken from them, but because of their status, they can't apply for programs like Medicare or Medicaid, other than the small emergency Medicaid that they have. It's a very limited amount of Medicaid that you get that was signed by a law by Ronald Reagan. We'll talk about that. Unemployment, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. There was one other that I was missing. Hold on. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment. Yeah, those were the big ones. Now, there are some limited programs that undocumented people can access for that kind of stuff, but it's very limited. And so we'll talk about that. But a lot of these people pay taxes into the system, especially for federal social insurance taxes, like a payroll tax. That money goes towards that money goes towards things like Social Security and Medicare, which they can't access those programs. Look, this is not me. This is not like up for debate. This is not me trying to give you a partisan like opinion. This is just facts. If you are a MAGA person and for some odd reason you have this idea, this belief that undocumented immigrants are like the worst thing in society and you are advocating doing a genocide against them with your ICE thugs, okay? It's also just facts for you to know that undocumented immigrants pay taxes. They pay particularly a lot of taxes into Social Security. I'm a US born citizen, so I have a Social Security number, everything like that. Actually, because we have a lot of undocumented people here, they are paying into the system for people like me to access and get a little bit more, a tiny little bump in Social Security. Who knows if I'll even get it, because, you know, Social Security seems to always be, like, on the chopping block. That all being said, it's important because they pay into a system, but they never are able to access those funds because they don't have a Social Security, number. Their birth certificate isn't showing that they are born here. So they don't have the citizenship to be able to apply. So how would you feel? Have some empathy, have the courage for empathy for just a second. How would you feel if you were required to pay for a streaming service that you could never actually use? That's what it's like. Being required to pay for something, you're working hard and some of that money is just taken away from you for something that you're never able to access. That's what it's like. Now, I think that that's kind of crazy. You know, undocumented immigrants, whether you like the fact they're here or not, that are undocumented, they are people. They are people with families, with kids to feed, with families to take care of. And oftentimes, there are these people that, the people that claim to be the most morally superior Christians are the ones that are the first to be brutal towards those groups. But you get what I mean. So, undocumented immigrants pay a lot in different taxes. Federal social insurance taxes, state and local taxes, federal income tax, miscellaneous federal taxes. You get my point. And especially with them paying a lot into federal social insurance taxes, that goes into things like $25.7 billion into Social Security, or $6.4 billion into Medicare, or $1.8 billion into unemployment. So these people are paying into a system that they can never access. while U.S. citizens also pay into it, but we actually receive the benefits that are supposed to go to these other people. So just that's just how it is. I cover what payroll taxes are. Also, you have Social Security taxes. 6.2% of wages, up to a cap matched by their employers, fund Social Security programs, providing retirement, disability, survivor benefits. There's Medicare taxes. 1.45 of wages matched by their employers. They fund Medicare, providing individuals or seniors, for seniors and certain disabled individuals. Federal, state, and income tax withholdings. They fund general government operations such as infrastructure and public services. So when you really break it all down, a lot of these people pay a lot of money into the system, but then they never receive those benefits. Undocumented immigrants can't qualify for Social Security. They don't have the citizenship. They don't have the Social Security number. They don't have the proper IDs to be able to access those programs. They're ineligible for Medicare. They're ineligible for normal Medicaid. They can't qualify or get unemployment. Yet they pay into those systems. So when the far right constantly pushes this idea that undocumented immigrants are like mooching off of the America, it's like, actually, these people are working here, but they can't qualify for the programs that you and I can as American citizens, based on our income and our citizenship status. So that's just facts. Now, I'm not here to tell you whether that's good or bad. That's just the facts. I think that it's kind of silly, but that's just me. Undocumented immigrants are ineligible for Medicare, so they don't get that as well. Also, social insurance taxes attributed by undocumented immigrants. This is what I showed you earlier. They pay a lot into Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, or unemployment, yet they don't ever receive the benefits of it. Also, while the federal government collects the bulk of the revenue through various types of taxes, you also have states and local governments receiving a tremendous amount of money from taxes on undocumented people. So nearly 39% of the total tax dollars paid by undocumented immigrants are to state and local governments, for a total of $37.3 billion in 2022. Again, I wish I had 2024 data, but they haven't done that comprehensive analysis yet. When we look and break down the state and local tax contributions by undocumented immigrants by category, you see that a good chunk of those are sales and excise taxes, about 46%, almost 50%, which is $15.1 billion. Also, you have property taxes, $10.4 billion, almost a third, 31%, personal and business income taxes, and other taxes. So, undocumented immigrants pay a lot into these systems. So they pay a lot in sales tax. They pay stuff in property tax. So it just putting it out there that the undocumented immigrant tax population are relatively concentrated in just a few states. This is also a really interesting fact that I want to share with you all. The money that is taken in by taxing undocumented immigrants come from just a handful of states primarily, which those states include California, Texas, New York, Florida, Illinois, and New Jersey. Those make up nearly 64%. So now there are some other states as well that are honorable mentions, like Virginia or North Carolina or Georgia, Tennessee, Arizona, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Connecticut. Those are some honorable mentions there. And what's really, really interesting is if you were to actually, and we'll break this down here, if you were to legalize all those people, you could actually tax them a whole lot more. We'd make more money as a government if we were to actually go through and legalize all these undocumented people, because then we would tax them more as official U.S. citizens. So for all these Republicans that are like, oh my God, I want to bring more money into the government so we can pay down the debt. You know, if we were to legalize all these undocumented people, we could actually bring more money into the government. Just saying. And then they could also access those programs. So, measured relative to their incomes, undocumented immigrants nationwide paid an average effective tax rate for state and local taxes of 8.9% toward funding public infrastructure, services, and institutions in their home states. To put this in perspective, the nation's most affluent taxpayers, those in the top 1%, whether they are Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter, and those top 1% paid an average nationwide effective tax rate of just 7.2% of their in their home states. So the rich top 1% actually paid a lower tax rate than undocumented people. Let that sink in for a second. So you have working class, low income, undocumented people, all those groups, middle class, working class, undocumented people, often pay a higher rate in taxes than the top 1%. That's called a regressive tax system. You don't even have a flat tax where everyone pays the same proportion of their income. It is a regressive tax system. That's what we have right now. So the top 1% pay a lower rate, a lower share of their overall income compared to working class people, which pay a higher percentage. So let me give it to you in this way. So I looked up the yearly salary for someone who is undocumented, and it's about $30,000. That's around the poverty line. Actually, I think that's beneath the poverty line. And then I looked up the average amount of money that the top 1% receive in yearly income. And if you tax these people at 8.9%, it's $3,370. Now, because we all pay relatively the same kinds of things for groceries, I mean, you can get really high quality stuff. We all access a decent amount of the same public services and benefits and stuff like that. For a low income working class person, each dollar has a higher amount of like worth and value. You know, you can, as a low income person, $5 means so much more to a low income person than $5 does for a super wealthy person, regardless if they are Democrat, independent, doesn't matter. So when you break this down here, a top 1% citizen, their yearly income is on average $794,000 a year. You tax them at 7.2% of their income, and now you're like, well, obviously these top 1% people are paying a lot more into the system. By monetary amount, that is true. That is true. Though, when you really, really think about it, each dollar that is taxed for a working class person, each dollar has so much more of like higher spending capability, has more of a worth. So if you're a low income person, if you are a low income MAGA red voter that's in Nebraska, okay, and you have $100, that $100 means so much more than to a wealthy elite liberal in New York. Now, conversely, put it on the other foot. If you have a super like undocumented immigrant, if you have a working class person in my home state of North Carolina who is a liberal, who is a progressive, and that $100 means so much more to them than someone like Elon Musk or Peter Thiel that has millions and billions of dollars. So you can see how there's a higher spending capacity, higher spending power for these low income people or undocumented people. So each dollar means so much more. So right now we have a regressive tax system even. So let that sink in, that rich people pay a lower rate. They pay a lower share in taxes than undocumented people. I see a super chat. The real question is, who cares about an illegal immigrant at all, much less what they make or how they live? First off, your profile picture says more about you, and you paid $5 to get my attention, which thank you. But then also you say, who cares about undocumented immigrants, much less how they live? Okay, I hope that you don't call yourself a Christian. I hope that you don't call yourself like, I hope that you don't view yourself as some sort of morally superior person. In fact, if you are the person saying that, I hope you realize how much of a crappy person you are. Like, don't come at me with some sort of, oh, I'm a good person, when you literally do not care about other people. And to really put that in perspective here, let me just show you some quotes by the Bible and what they say about undocumented people and how you should be treating those people with love, care, and dignity. Let me actually show you some of that. And I don't mind going on a quick little detour here, because this is important for people to realize. There are a whole bunch of verses in the Bible that specifically talk about extending love to undocumented immigrants, or extending love to low-income people or foreigners in the land. Hold on, let me find it here a second. Where is it? Here we go. Do not mistreat foreigners living in your country, but treat them just as you treat your own citizens. Love foreigners as you love yourselves, because you were once foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord, your God. It's baffling to me when you have a lot of these people that claim to be these like morally superior MAGA Christians, evangelicals, when you don't even know what's in your own damn Bible. For if you truly amend your ways and your doings, if you truly act justly with one another, if you do not oppress the alien, the orphan, the widow, or shed innocent blood in this place, blah, 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 you can see how the Bible specifically talks about extending love to undocumented people. Thus says the Lord your God, render true judgment, sow kindness and mercy to another. Do not press the widow, the foreigner, the alien, or the poor. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without me knowing it. You can see that there are endless amounts of callings in the Bible. If you're religious and MAGA, and this is the party that is literally setting fire to the Bible and what they are advocating for. They talk about not mistreating foreigners, or they often call them sojourners. So, in theory, you should have Christians, these evangelical people, be the most woke in this way, because they should be advocating for loving your neighbor. So who's really being played here? And you say, oh, well, who cares about those people? I care. I care about all people. I care about everyone, whether you are undocumented or not. You know why? Because I don't want to foster cruelty. I don't want to foster cruelty towards a certain group of people. Look, we are all, in this country, all of us have an immigration story. Whether you are like me and one half of my family actually come from colonizers, or the other side come from immigrants, doesn't matter. We are all living here on stolen land from Native Americans. But point is, like, why is there so much hate and division, especially for undocumented people? Do you think that they like being undocumented? Do you think that there is some weird, like, rebellious coup of all these people that are, like, trying to subvert American democracy? No, they're fleeing violence from their countries like Venezuela. They are fleeing violence in countries from Latin America and South America. They are trying to they are fleeing economic instability, environmental instability. Their kids are being recruited for gangs in Mexico. So they decide, oh, I see these beautiful movies and pictures, this idea of the American dream. I'm going to try and go to America in order to actually help my family. Now, it doesn't make them right to then be undocumented. I know many undocumented people in my life personally. They are terrified. They hate being undocumented. They're trying to get their papers. They are terrified at the fact that they are undocumented. They say, we just want to be a part of this country. I don't know why people are so cruel. Yet, what does America do? We extend the most brutality. We kidnap these people in unmarked vehicles with cowards that cover their face. So when you say, oh, who cares about these people? I care about these people because I hope that you would too. I hope that you have the capacity for empathy, because if you put yourself in their place, would you be saying the same things? No, but you are a coward. You do not have the courage for empathy whatsoever. Yes, I said it. So these people are taxed. A lot of immigrants are taxed for state, local taxes or federal taxes. That goes to Social Security, Medicare, unemployment. But because of their status as not being citizens, they can't access those programs. That's like being forced to pay for a streaming service that you can never actually participate or watch anything. That's what it's like. How would you feel if you were required, if part of your paycheck went to something that you could never access? Let's say that you earn $800 like a month, which is pretty low. Let's say that you earn $800 a month and you get taxed on about 75 of that dollars. Over time, that really stacks up. Take $75 and just throw it out the window and you never see it again. That's what it's like for undocumented immigrants who are just working here in often jobs that aren't normal American citizens, particularly white American citizens like me, often don't want to take, because they are the ones that are cleaning your office buildings. They're the ones that are doing the construction work. They're the ones that are doing these lower income blue collar jobs that most Americans don't want to take. So, and what do we do in return? We demonize them. We fearmonger about their existence. American cowardice and cruelty is on full display right now, and it's just disgusting. I would hope that I strive to live into a world where we put empathy at the core of policy. Just period. It's baffling to me how cruel some people are. And what really happens behind cruelty is cowardice. That's really what it is. Behind every single act of cruelty, you have cowardice. A lot of these MAGA people are cowardly. They don't have the capacity for empathy because they are truly afraid of someone being different from them, instead of asking them how they are or getting to know these people. They are propagandized by their Fox outlet to be fearful of people who are different from them, when they themselves haven't even engaged in conversations to learn more about those people. It's stupid. But to continue on here, I also want to point out that if we were to actually legalize a lot of undocumented people, we would actually be able to take in more money. If you were to legalize all the undocumented people in this country, we would actually be able to tax them more. That's very true. So change in tax contributions by the currently undocumented people if legal status is granted. So I know it's going to be kind of hard to see this here, but I want to show you. The current contributions for undocumented immigrants and taxes for California is $8 million, $8.4 million. If you were to grant legal status to all of those undocumented people, they would be taking in more revenue. They'd be taking in almost $2 million more. Wait, hold on. That's billion dollars. Sorry. $8.4 billion in current contributions. If you were to legalize all those people, then it would be almost an extra $2 billion in local, state, and tax revenue. Like, red states like Arkansas, you have current contributions as $188 million. You were to give all the undocumented people in Arkansas legal status, you could be taking in hold on, I can't see that number. I have a little menu in the way. You'd be taking in that much money. 35 million extra dollars? Oh, I see another super chat in here. Christians get really mad when their hypocrisy is pointed out. Repent and welcome the immigrants like Jesus said. 100%. And look, I'm not sure where I am with my Christianity or my spiritual journey. I was raised in a very, very Christian family. And, in some ways, I just saw the hypocrisies of Christianity and how they treated people. The Bible would say one thing, and then the actions of Christians would just be another. And I'm like, I don't want to be a part of this whole thing if people are going to act without feeling sorry for their actions, violating what they're doing. Like, it just seemed weird to me. You know, I thought religion was supposed to be something that grounded people and made other people care about others. But then when I really looked at Christianity, especially Southern evangelical Christianity, I'm like, wow, this really goes against what you all are talking about. And now that those people started embracing MAGA, and I was like, how? If you claim to actually care about what you are saying and doing, and that's where my biggest critique of religion really comes into, there's a lot of people who are obsessed with the culture of being Christian, but they actually don't care about the physical book or what it actually says. And that's something that needs to be pointed out. I appreciate that super chat a lot, Hunter Waco. You are spot on in that sense. And, you know, here's the thing. Don't make me have to call out hypocrisy. Don't participate in it. If you're one of these people that's like, I don't like when you point out the hypocrisy of, you know, my religion. Okay, but then maybe don't be a hypocrite. If you're like, oh, I don't like you calling out the cruelty of blah, 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 then maybe don't be cruel. Is it that hard to, like, do that? Anyway, last thing, I have to go here in just a couple minutes, but I do want to share with you all a couple last minute things. There are narrow provisions. For undocumented people to receive something called emergency Medicaid. And this is a law that was actually put in place by Ronald Reagan. Now, Ronald Reagan, in my view, was not great in so many ways, but he did sign into law something called EMTALA, Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act. EMTALA, which is a program that says that if you are an undocumented person, you can go to the hospital and be seen by a doctor. And part of the bill will be footed if you need access. This is only for things like a severe illness or a severe injury. This isn't for your normal doctor's visits or checkups or regular healthcare access or anything like that. This is only in critical conditions. And I want to point out that EMTALA only costs, the cost of EMTALA is 0.4% of all Medicaid spending. So scope and cost in fiscal year 2023, emergency Medicaid spending totaled $3.8 billion, representing just 0.4% of overall Medicaid expenditures. So this is a program that doesn't cost very much. And if you're one of these people that's like, oh, $3.8 billion, that's still a lot. That is a lot. But you know what's also a lot? You know what's also a lot? Hold on just a second. You know what's also a lot? When our neck pussy leader-in-chief gives a bailout to Argentina to the tune of $20 billion. Trump administration authorized a $20 billion financial bailout package for the government of Argentina just because the president of Argentina is his friend. Or the $12 billion that we've already sent to Israel in military assistance for arms. So there is a small, narrow provision for undocumented immigrants to receive EMTALA. There's also a couple other programs that were put in place and then were ended for different programs for undocumented people to access. So this was during COVID. This was during, you have the Excluded Workers Pilot Program, unemployment. You had some limited provisions in here as well. Undocumented immigrants can also access WIC, which is women, women, infants, and children for SNAP benefits, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits. Because regardless of the fact that they are undocumented, if they are low enough income, they should be able to then be a part of this program, which provides supplemental nutrition assistance so that they can afford, especially for children, to be able to eat. See, this is the thing. If you want to call yourself a Christian and then you're angry about undocumented immigrants getting a little bit of assistance to feed their kids, then don't call yourself a good-hearted Christian that cares about other people. We can talk about changing the system so that we don't have so many undocumented people. That's a whole nother conversation. But right now, there are programs put in place so that undocumented people, if they don't earn enough money, they actually have programs put in place so that women, infants, and children don't go hungry. The Bible talks about welcoming the stranger, the sojourner, the alien, for once you were a stranger in the land of Egypt. So why is there so much cruelty towards undocumented people? Why are these Christian evangelicals so committed to being a hypocrite, is my question. There's also SNAP. So extending SNAP benefits means that regardless of the citizenship status of undocumented kids, that they can receive some free school lunch. Oh dear, it's such a travesty that kids are now receiving money so that they don't go hungry, or families receive money so they don't go hungry, or that schools can provide free school lunch for all kids. Geez, that's such a crazy idea that we don't want kids to go hungry. For the people who are mad about this kind of thing, and then you claim to be morally superior, claim to be, oh, I'm one of these good-hearted Christians. Don't call yourself a morally superior person if you are against feeding children. Sorry, just don't. Just don't. Anyway, I have to go here. I appreciate every single one of you. I hope this deep dive really did kind of share and put into perspective how much undocumented immigrants pay in taxes. Because the big takeaway here, if you're like, wait, hold on, I just scrolled in here. What is all of this? Undocumented immigrants pay almost $100 billion in taxes in 2022 into programs. And that includes state, local taxes, federal social insurance taxes, other stuff. But the thing is, because they are undocumented, because they lack citizenship, they lack having a social security number, they lack having proper IDs, they can't apply to access certain programs because they are undocumented. That includes Social Security, Medicare, regular Medicaid, unemployment, meaning that they pay into the system, but then they never receive money out of it. There are some narrow provisions specifically put in place for food stamps for women, infants, children, so that they can access that, or emergency Medicaid, which is only 0.4% of all Medicaid spending. That all being said, a lot of undocumented immigrants pay a lot into the system, they pay a lot into it and they can never access it. That's just facts are facts. Anyway, I have to go. Shout out to my amazing moderators, Akicha, Cherie, Kate, Elisa. I could not do any of this without you all. Ellie, Cantisa, Joanna Tech, Jenny. I love all of you so much. Like, I really could not do my live without my moderators. Also, to the people who gave super chats, y'all are amazing. I appreciate all of you. To the regular listeners, I could not do any of this without you all. So anyway, I'm a working class girly, so I need to get to work. I appreciate every single one of you. Just remember that you are beautiful, you are loved, you are valid, you are strong, and you are fierce. Don't let anyone or anything ever dim your shine. I love all of you so much. Bye!